Thanks for joining the Halal in Travel Global Summit hosted by Crescent Rating. My name is Soumaya Hamdi from Halal Travel Guide, and today we're going to be discussing and sharing ideas and experiences on authenticity and adventure, how to craft immersive experiences for the Muslim traveler. Now, this subject is particularly close to my heart, and I'm sure whether you are a traveler or you're someone working in the industry, you already know that authentic experiences, experiences that touch the heart, are really the key to a successful travel experience. So it's pretty important, I think, at the outset to set out by what we mean by immersive experiences, authentic experiences, because you can go skiing in many places, you can go hiking in many places, you can have cookery experiences in many places. These are common, and in fact, you can say that these are the activities that you can find whether you're exploring in Africa, in somewhere in Southeast Asia. These activities can take place anywhere. But for a destination or for a tour operator or for a travel agent to be able to distinguish themselves and to stand out, there has to be something a little bit more, something that creates a competitive edge. So they are not in and of themselves the essence of what we're discussing today. Instead, it's about what these experiences are designed to achieve. And I think one of the best ways I can explain this is through a personal anecdote that I have. Creating tours and travel experiences for Muslim travelers. We've created an itinerary, for example, in Bosnia, where we took them to all of the must-see sites, the incredible waterfalls. They've been rafting, they've gone horse riding, they've gone hiking in incredible scenery, and they've tried delicious food. But they've also gone to a local auntie's house where she has taught them how to make traditional Bosnian dolma, and she's encouraged them to make it through picking the vegetables in her orchard, picking the fresh peppers, showing them how to stuff the peppers with the meat. And when we've asked them at the end of this trip, what was the highlight of the experience for you? Was it the rafting? Was it seeing the must-see sites that you see in every single TripAdvisor recommendation? What they've actually said was it was this home experience with a local Bosnian auntie where I felt like I could share my stories with her and where she shared her stories with me. So really, it's the essence of building that relationship, building that human connection. And that is how you create a truly immersive experience and create loyal travelers that will want to come again and again. And this is the crux of what we'll be discussing today. So I'm delighted that we've got such a fantastic selection of panelists today. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce them, inshallah. First up, we've got Nurul Mimsy, who is a Malay Muslim blogger and travel enthusiast. Born in Malaysia, raised in Singapore, she spent most of her youth on the move, working in the outdoors and in the tourism industry before she transitioned to marketing and communications. And so she's used her life experience with her work experience to specialize in search engine optimization and content marketing in relation to halal tourism and creates incredible and very useful content for Muslim travelers looking to plan their holidays. She has an award-winning blog, exploretomacan.com. So after this session, please do make sure you go and check it out. And in this blog, you'll see she's championing and chronicling her experiences as a solo traveler and more recently as a part of a couple alongside her husband. Welcome, Nurul. Next up, we have Elena Nikolova, who needs no introduction. Elena is known as Muslim Travel Girl. She's an international speaker, author, and editor of MuslimTravelGirl.com, which is the largest Muslim-friendly, Western Muslim-friendly travel website for Muslims. And it's a treasure trove of information. This is another site that you definitely want to check out after the session, inshallah. She's been featured by leading media outlets, including the New York Times, CNN, BBC, Travel and Leisure, Airbnb. And as an influencer, her goal is to enhance future opportunities for Muslim travelers to explore the world and be confident in their Muslim identity, which is something I think, inshallah, we'll be touching on later in the session. Welcome, Elena. Next up, we've got Hannah, and Hannah is the director of Pear, a tourism research and sales representation consultancy specializing in the Southeast Asian and Muslim tourism industry. She puts together a weekly report tracking the recovery of Southeast Asian tourism industry, and she co-hosts the podcast, The Southeast Asia Travel Show, another place that you want to check out, inshallah, after the session. Hannah is also the APAC Regional Director for the Adventure Travel Trade Association. And last but certainly not least, we have Arif Abbas Manji, with a deep-rooted passion for Muslim-friendly tourism, sustainable development, and a keen understanding of the intersection between tourism, community empowerment, and environmental conservation. Arif is the driving force behind the advancement of Zanzibar's tourism sector, and he's championed initiatives aimed at fostering Muslim-friendly tourism practices that prioritize the preservation of Zanzibar's cultural heritage. He is, of course, the head of Tourism Presidential Delivery Bureau in Zanzibar. So welcome, Arif. Welcome, everyone, to this session. I can't wait to get started.
Thank you very much, Hannah.
Thank you. What I'm going to do is I think what we can do just to get the conversation going, we'll start out with some specific questions for each of you. And then once we've got into the flow, I think we can branch out into some more themes around authentic experiences and how to do so in a way, how to create these experiences in a way that is immersive, that's sustainable, and that brings value to the destination and to the traveler. So Nurul, just to put you on the spot, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Now, with Explore to Makan, you've beautifully blended the love for food and travel into storytelling that supports small businesses and aids Muslim travelers. Can you share how this approach has influenced and is influencing your community's travel choices and experiences?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me, Soumaya. I think I'm still new in this blogging scene, but one of the things that I usually try to do is to answer to the community, the direct community that's nearest to me, which is my family members and relatives. So growing up from Southeast Asia, there's a lot of stigma around traveling solo, and they always think that traveling is hard if you have to do it yourself. So I try to make travel guides that help them see that traveling is actually really easy. So essentially my articles will make them see that travel planning is actually very easy and very seamless. So one of the things that recently just happened was over the Eid holidays, right? I went back to Malaysia to meet my family, and I get a lot of messages and comments from my family members saying that their articles have helped them, like my articles have helped them craft their own itineraries. And I think that's so heartwarming because now they can make their own informed choice, and they can see for themselves that it's actually not that hard. It's really easy to just go out there and DIY everything on your own. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you're empowering your community to have the confidence just to get out there, because previously there have been barriers to this, and maybe they feel like it's not that straightforward to just head out there and organize their own travel experiences. That's fantastic. And that's very important, I think, especially in a digital age, to take advantage of the accessibility that people have, and you're providing a really valuable service that I'm sure even beyond your local community, that people around the world will, especially with your SEO skills. If anyone who's ever worked in SEO, you know how useful it is to reach out not just to your audience, but also a wider audience, and really add value, I think, in travel and tourism.
Yes, inshallah.
Perfect. Okay. And I think it makes sense if we go on to Elena next, because you've also got a very influential Muslim travel blog. So as a prominent figure in Western Muslim-friendly travel, can you discuss and share with us how the media's portrayal of Muslim travelers has evolved or is evolving? And what role do you think platforms like yours are playing in shaping these narratives, but also what changes are still needed?
Wow, that's a big question.
It's a big one, yeah.
It's a big one. I mean, there's several parts to this question. So I've been doing this for almost 12 years now, which seems so short and so long in terms of time. But I have seen evolving, the whole industry evolving, the whole mainstream media evolving. So at the beginning, the questions were very basic of, can you travel? Where can you go? Is it okay to travel as a Muslim? How is the perception of other Western countries? Because I write a lot about Western countries. And then slowly it evolved with the demand of Muslim travelers to start offering more halal-friendly accommodations throughout Europe, where you can find more halal food, where, hotels, when you ring them at reception, they will know where there is a halal restaurant near, or which side you can pray. There have been so many hotels where I have met Muslims working in those hotels who can actually help me and navigate, where throughout the years, this has become more popular and more acceptable, whether it is because we see more social media influencers, or because, the second part of the question, how websites like mine and accounts like mine have helped Muslims, is by raising awareness, by making travelers more confident in exploring. Like Nurul said, developing that confidence of doing yourself DIY things. At the beginning, when I started my website, a lot of the questions were on safety issues, on Muslim acceptance. Now, for the past few years, they have changed and they have become more of, where can I go that it's a fun adventure experience, that I can also find halal food, or, as you mentioned, Soumaya, have more authentic cultural local experience. It has shifted from safety and acceptance to, hey, I am part of this travel industry, I'm part of this world, and now I just want to immerse myself as part of being part of this world and part of my identity being Muslim, rather than my whole identity in previous years being, I am Muslim, I am restricted on my travel experiences. Now it is, well, the world is my oyster and I'm Muslim and I'm cool with that. And the world is becoming more acceptable to that. And I feel that platforms like mine have helped in that, have developed that confidence in Muslims. Over the years, social media has done tremendously. There's so many talented creators out there that portray local experiences and adventures and opening, the eyes of the world to different experiences. Like Soumaya, you do tours in Bosnia, which, a few years ago was not a thing. And now you have these immersive experiences that help Muslims to, become more confident. And I feel that this is only the beginning. It will change, it will develop even more. And I'm really excited to see it, because for the past 10 years has been tremendous value. And we know from the reports that even the pre-COVID figures are coming back in terms of, halal travel, investment in industry and demand. So yeah, there's so much more opportunity and potential.
And you've touched on a few, I think, really important points that we want to explore as we continue this discussion. The first, which I think we'll hand over to Hannah next, is around the kind of post-COVID recovery that we're seeing, and how it compares with what we've been expecting, but also how rapidly the market is changing and developing. And I think there's two really interesting points that you've mentioned there, Elena, which is first, how people's requests and interests have been changing, and how initially they've been interested in, is it safe? Is it okay for me to travel? How can I do that? How can I get the confidence to go out there? And now it's shifting to, well, okay, clearly the confidence is there. How can I access great experiences while also accessing halal food? And this is the shift that we're seeing in halal tourism, and it's changing very fast. That destinations really need to keep up with, because it's no longer enough, I think we can say, okay, I've got halal food, I've got prayer facilities, I'm sorted. And I think where we're talking about particularly OIC countries who previously have had an advantage because they have had halal food and prayer spaces available, we're seeing that they're losing their competitive edge if they're not keeping up with the changes in the consumer market. The consumers are becoming much more demanding and wanting access to these more authentic experiences, particularly because around 70% of the global Muslim population are aged under 40, and these young people are hungry to feel that connection and to access that. So we'll come back to that shortly. But Hannah, I wanted to go over to you and ask, really considering your expertise in tourism research, and particularly in Southeast Asian markets, what are some of the key factors that destinations should consider to effectively create a loyal following in the Muslim travel market? And are there some insights that you can share with us today from your recent reports on how these regions are adapting post-pandemic? And in your mind, and based on what you found in your research, which are the places that are pushing ahead very well and setting a great example that others can follow?
Yeah, that's great. And I think what I'm going to say is probably very much along the lines of what you were just summing up and what Elena was talking about as well. If you're thinking about Southeast Asia and travelers, what's really interesting is when you go to consumer fairs here, because big consumer travel fairs, and there's still a massive thing. People still go and they still buy. And you see the destinations that are there. Typically, it's Japan, it's Korea, it's Taiwan, sometimes Hong Kong. And these destinations have done immensely well over the last 10 years in starting to target Muslim travelers. And you've seen, just like Elena was saying, there's been this shift, right, in how consumers are thinking about traveling. Like, is it okay? Am I going to be able to find food as a Muslim traveler? So the destinations, particularly the East Asian ones, we're talking Japan, Korea, Taiwan, have been very smart at shifting that as well. So it did start off with, quite rightly, like you were saying, Soumaya, here's a list of places you can go get halal food. Here's a list of places you can pray. And now it's getting much, much more sophisticated, that marketing. So for example, Taiwan, if you go to Malaysia's Mata Fair, the biggest consumer travel fair, they have an entire booth which is just Salam Taiwan. It is just aimed only at Muslim-friendly travel offerings, right? This is such a shift, and it is a destination, like you're saying, this is giving OIC destinations a real run for their money because they're coming after them. And this destination where you think, oh, it's Chinese food, there's probably a lot of pork here, maybe they don't speak English, am I going to be able to find what I need? They're like leapfrogging everybody with this. They have all of the influencers going out. And I think what they're very good at, like you're saying, is it's now going beyond the basics to how can you have that authentic experience? How can you connect? And representation, it's great for tourism boards to say, yeah, we're super Muslim friendly, but if all of the marketing collateral they're using are clearly non-Muslim people, it doesn't feel very inclusive, right? And I think Taiwan, Japan, they're getting a lot better now, Korea as well, in bringing these Muslim influencers, in bringing even the Muslim travel trade. And I know Nurul was talking about encouraging DIY, and there's definitely that segment, but in Southeast Asia still, the travel trade is still a key channel, particularly perhaps older travelers, not necessarily the younger ones. And destinations are not only putting in the time to educate consumers around what there is, but also the travel trade too. So that there is that deep understanding at the travel trade side when somebody walks into a travel agent that says, hey, I'm looking for Muslim-friendly itinerary to Korea, that they don't just do the same old, that they've kind of expanded. They've sent them out on fam trips. They've sent them out to experience those kind of wider experiences that Muslim travelers can have.
That's fantastic. I mean, you've really given us a good picture of the leaders really paving the way for this industry. I mean, a whole section called Salam Taiwan at a trade fair is fantastic. And honestly, it's not something that you'll find in some of the biggest Western trade markets. So I think you can say certainly on the Western side of the world, we are falling behind a little bit. And it's definitely important, I think, for these OIC destinations to look at their competitive edge, which brings me, of course, to Arif, because you are in Zanzibar, you're from Tanzania. So considering the sensitive balance between tourism growth and cultural preservation in Zanzibar, what strategies are you implementing, is the government implementing to educate and involve the local community in sustainable tourism efforts that are also Muslim friendly and that will also appeal to Muslim audiences and help Zanzibar to sharpen that competitive edge?
Thank you very much, Soumaya, for a very lovely question. So I would start by saying that in Zanzibar or in Tanzania as a general, is that we did have the advantage that we're Muslims, we're friendly Muslims. The population in Zanzibar is almost 99% is Muslims. So we did have the prayer facilities, we did have the halal food, we did have the infrastructure, I would say, which is the main and the primary one. But I think that as a sector in general, as a tourism sector, I think that we have had the wrong indicators on what is success in tourism all along. We've had the number of the tourists being our main indicator for like so many years. And I think this was actually the wrong approach. I think it's more of the quality of the tourist and how those tourists will have a social impact to your people. Because if you have thousands and millions of tourists, but then they don't have an impact straight to the people of your country or the people of your destination, then this is when you start saying, oh, these riots that are happening in Spain right now, this is when this has happened again in Egypt in the 90s. So I think that it is quite instrumental for the type of the tourism that all these destinations do cater for and do target should have a connection with the local people of that area. This is mainly for the Muslim destinations, but for the rest of the world, I think that there are 2 billion Muslims right now at the moment. And if you look at the economics, I'm certain that every destination should want to take a piece of this market. If you want to if you want to cater for the Chinese market, for instance, there are 300 million travelers in the Chinese market, but you will make sure that you have the right infrastructure for them, basically from the connectivity, from the foods they eat, from the hotels, from the tour guides that like you'll have, you'll train them in language, etc., etc. So this is just the Chinese market, which is 300 million travelers. We're 2 billion Muslims in the world, and we're still growing every day. So to come back to your question on what we are doing in Zanzibar, the first thing that we are trying to do is that we're trying to involve the community fully, so that they have full local content. We're trying to make them make the to make the products that are used in the hotels. We're trying to make new tours and packages whereby there is more community involvement between the tourist and the people themselves. Zanzibar has seen about 650,000 tourists last year. But then, if you go right now to the locals in Zanzibar, to the villages in Zanzibar, and you ask them, do you guys benefit from tourism? I would tell you that 70% would say no. And this is because the tourism that is flowing into Zanzibar right now, um, what should I say? I'm trying to use for the right words to say this, isn't friendly for the community in Zanzibar. So you would have this like stigma that, okay, my son, my daughter, my brother, my sister shouldn't be working in a hotel that serves alcohol, that they will be exposed to nudity, etc., etc. So this is why it is instrumental, it is important for us, specifically in Tanzania and Zanzibar, to cater for the Muslim travel market, because this is what our people value. This is what we need from the world. This is what we need from the tourist. So what we have done as a government so far, we have started these training programs whereby we want the community to make their own products, whereby Muslim travelers will be attracted to. So we have the village tours, we have the spice tours, and all of this is like halal food. There is like Swahili cooking, which is also you are taught on how to cook the Swahili dishes, but all the food is halal as well. You have the Islamic tours. We have Stone Town in Zanzibar. It's a World Heritage Site, and we have over 18 mosques there that we have packaged right now to sell as a tour as well. Um, we have notices as well in the towns in Stone Town that please do respect the culture of the people, please dress in a decent manner, do not drink in public, etc., etc. So these are things that we are trying to share to the tourists as well. We have it in the airport as well, so that the tourists that do come into the country do knows of our values and culture, and they need to respect it. But in Ramadan as well, we have announcements in Ramadan that please do not eat in public. All the restaurants are closed. The only places that you will be able to find food in Ramadan in Zanzibar is the hotels, which is private, which is fine because like we can't say that like no food to everyone. Like we need to cater for all markets as well. So this is how we're trying to slowly build up on the right market for the right people in Zanzibar.
And I mean, these are really incredible initiatives. Based on the feedback that you're getting so far from the local people and from the tourists, What's the reception like? Because you've mentioned, the spice tours, the local culture and heritage tours, and packaging a mosque tour, but also putting that messaging out there to consumers wide, regardless of which market they're from, that this is our local culture. You need to respect our way of life. Uh, what would you say is the feedback that you're getting so far based on the travelers that are coming in?
Very positive, to be honest, Soumaya. So if you look at the feedback that like we're getting from the Muslim travelers, from the non-Muslim travelers, it's both very positive. So I just think that as a destination, you need to take a stand from the beginning that this is the culture of this destination, and this is what you all have to come and respect and value and see and experience as well. Because if you leave it free and then like you don't have the identity of the destination, and people travel to experience things. People, they do travel to see different identities of the world. So I think it is quite important. I think it's a value adding thing to have an identity to your destination.
And just expanding on that, of course, every you have KPIs, you have targets, and you want to see the value also in for the local economy. Have you noticed what the difference in the value of non-Muslim versus Muslim traveler spend is?
It's a very good question. And in
I have to
fact, I
say, this
would
is a question that's come through from Hannah. Hannah's got her analytical hat on, so she's curious.
thank you, Hannah. That's a very, very good question.
You're the
So,
spot.
at the moment, right now, we aren't able to quantify the difference in the travelers because it is very hard for you to know who is a Muslim traveler from one who is not a Muslim traveler. Because if you look at the tours and the packages and the services which I've shared with you right now, we have both clienteles. We do have the Muslim travelers that do go for those activities, but we also have the non-Muslim travelers that also do go for those activities as well. Same thing for the hotels. We have some that are Muslim friendly, but then if you look at the quantities, if you look at the numbers, about 60% of the people that stay in the Muslim friendly are not Muslims. So it is quite very hard for you to quantify, and then we can't ask everybody that is coming to the destination, are you a Muslim traveler, right? Are you not a Muslim traveler? So I think that there is a huge gap in this area. I was actually speaking to Fazal just a few days ago, and we were saying that the only way that maybe we could quantify this is from the hotels, like from the accommodation and from the tour operators, see who goes for what, ask those tiny questions that like will give them out. But then I don't think it's figures that we can quantify in the near future. I
Mm.
think this will take some time and some effort. I'm sure that it is good for the forecast and for the planning, etc. But on the other hand, in terms of demographics, well, they're all travelers, right? So we could just say that we could try to cluster them in terms of the activities that they do. The question is non-Muslim versus like Muslim travelers. It's going to be hard to quantify that.
I mean, I wonder, and I'm going to open it up now onto the panel because I wonder if, in the long term, whether we want to differentiate between Muslim and non-Muslim traveler spend. Because I think now, for where the market is, it's really helpful to know. But if we're looking at halal tourism as a principle, as a framework to create experiences that are more in line with the local culture, the local communities, that are more respectful to local communities, that enable travelers to have a higher value experience. Um, in theory, and wouldn't it be nice? We could talk about halal tourism as providing the framework for a more sustainable, regenerative framework for global travel and tourism that non-Muslims and Muslims should be able to benefit from. They should, whether they are the traveler or the local person, they should feel that actually this is a form of tourism that's much better than the status quo. Because as you've rightly mentioned, Arif, regarding the protests that are taking place in Spain, where the local residents are fed up of being priced out of the housing market, where they feel like the travelers who are coming in are not only not adding value, but disrespecting the local culture. And this is, widely publicized in the news. So I'm sure you've read the reports that the locals are being really vocal and saying, we don't want travelers coming in who don't respect the local community, who don't appreciate our local culture. And this is not just in Spain. This is a movement that we're seeing across the board. In Amsterdam, they, I think last year or the year before, they created a marketing campaign which was directly targeted at British travelers, telling them not to come, telling them don't come here for the things that you usually come for. Unfortunately, the things like the red light district and the certain cafes that Amsterdam has become synonymous with, they're trying now to shift away because they're realizing there's less value in this type of traveler. We're focusing on numbers, as you've mentioned, calculating success and how many tourist visitors we're getting isn't necessarily a great measure for success. So just opening up now to everybody, really, I think, based on your knowledge, your research, your experience, how do you think travel providers should be adapting to global trends like this one, where we're seeing local people are demanding travel experiences that bring more value to them, more value to the local economy, that are protecting and preserving their culture and their heritage. And actually, in the same vein, travelers are also looking for more connection. They're also looking for more authenticity. And this is, I think, going to be a growing trend, particularly with Gen Z, as they slowly but surely start to enter their more economically influential years and start to influence this market more. Elena, would you like to go first?
Yes, I have a couple of comments actually on this topic, and it's such a good discussion to have. One will be from the perspective of authenticity and from perspective of the value of the customer base. I actually grew up in Greece, in Corfu, where we had a small B&B. So I was kind of born into the travel tourism industry, and very similar principle to what happened in Amsterdam happens a lot of time in Corfu, which is very popular with tourists. And it's a matter of quantity over quality. And I feel that for the past several years, we have seen a shift of the quality of travelers. I think after the pandemic, people were more into experiences, immersive, more cultural, adaptive, rather than before the pandemic, where everything was about visit the most countries in the whole world type of thing, but stay for 24 hours. You really haven't seen much, but you've ticked the country out of your list. And I feel this is starting, yes, because of the younger generation, but also because we became more conscious into our impact of traveling in the world for the past few years. And another thing for me, it's very interesting of how the quality of customers, and I guess that's a very good example of Zanzibar, is we as Muslims and can target such a wider audience than just Muslims. We have other religions like, more conservative Christians that are open to that Muslim-friendly type of experiences because they don't drink alcohol. I recently went to a conference I was speaking at in Utah, which is a Mormon area, but very similar to value of what Muslims actually value. They had no alcohol in several restaurants. Like, it's not wild why to have alcohol. They had halal food because they had a small Muslim community there. But it is just that as an ethical travel industry, or as an industry that is opening up more to that quality, we can see more value in bringing people that are not only numbers people, but experienced people. And I feel they spend more per capita. They want more immersive experiences. And we have the opportunity to actually, from a Muslim destination like Zanzibar, which I didn't even think initially of the struggle that actually Muslim countries have of bringing non-Muslim tourists in, that they can bring a wider variety of customers in.
If I can add on to your points, Elena, I'm just putting my Adventure Travel Trade Association hat on, because we have a lot of research around the value of adventure travel. And for us, adventure travel is not super hardcore, right? It can be that soft adventure. It could be food tours, it could be going for a hike, it could be e-biking. It is not like having to climb a mountain. But when you look at studies for adventure travel and how many travelers it takes to generate $10,000 within a local community, you find that it takes just 4 adventure travelers for something like 9 overnight package tourists and over 90 cruise travelers. So it's really, like you say, it's about that tourism directly contributing to the community. And that's what I love that Arif was saying. It's about the social impact, right? As well, that you're having. It's not only the environmental impact, it's that social impact. And it's making sure that the money stays within those communities as well. Like, again, you were saying, what of this money, you're asking the people, is this supporting you? Is this money going to you? No, it's not going to me, it's going somewhere else. But I think that's the beauty of ecotourism, of community-based tourism, is that it directly benefits those people. And like you say, it's those values that then attracts people to come and visit, and kind of creates this virtuous circle, right? Because they have these values, and those kind of people with those values want to visit that. Or even if they don't, they might go and it might completely change their perspective, and they go home a convert to this kind of travel that is really values based.
I think that's fantastic. And I think just anecdotally, sharing really nothing on the level of your research, Hannah, but just anecdotally looking at Facebook groups, speaking with guests that come on our trips, and just observing kind of the online and the digital space and people in destinations, there is much more interest in having experiences that transform you as a person. And it's not necessarily the big bucket list experiences that we are expecting it to happen. I think maybe you can all relate when you've gone to a destination perhaps that you've been wanting to go for a long time, or you visited a famous site that you've wanted to visit for a long time, and in the end it was something totally unrelated that for you was transformative. And actually, just coming to my mind now, we recently had a group in Jordan, and of course, they went to Petra, one of the 7 wonders of the world. They had an incredible experience. And it's, if anyone hasn't been to Petra, I highly recommend go and visit Petra. It's wonderful. So I was expecting that they would tell me that Petra for us was as we were expecting. It was the highlight of the trip. I'm never going to forget it. So when we've asked them, what is the highlight of your trip? They've said actually it was after Petra, when we went to the desert, we went to Wadi Rum, and we stayed at this eco-friendly Bedouin camp. And bear in mind, at this eco-friendly camp, it's different to some of the other camps that you're finding in Wadi Rum that have a bit of glitz and glamour. They're kind of Instagram worthy. They've got these amazing kind of, they look like greenhouses, some of them, and at nighttime they have these raves, and there's lights and a lot of noise. And this eco camp is the kind of place where you can't have a hot shower first thing in the morning because the sun hasn't yet hit the solar panels, and you have to wait until around just after midday when the heat of the sun has arrived, and now there's hot water in the system. So this is, it's that kind of place. It's really not just no frills, but truly eco-friendly, and truly about preserving as much as possible the traditional way of life of the Bedouin, which is no wastage or minimal wastage, utilizing what we have in the most sustainable way possible. And it's such a fantastic camp. And I highly recommend. It's called a Rum Planet Camp if anyone is interested in visiting. And for me, I'm continually surprised, even myself, when people come to me and they say, okay, so it wasn't necessarily the 4 or the 5-star hotel that was the standout for me. It was being able to go to this camp and have a traditional experience with a local Bedouin person who showed me the traditional Bedouin way of seeing the stars and figuring out the constellations, and how they use the shadows of the sun to figure out what time of day it is, and how, as a boy, Ahmed, he's the head of the camp, he would go with his grandmother and herd the sheep, and she would rely on him to tell the time based on how long the shadow is behind the mountain. And if he was a minute late, he'd be in serious trouble. They're better timekeepers, I think, than us with watches. So it's really insightful, I think, just something that all humans can relate to. And again, going back to this idea of not just being Muslim traveler, but as a human, wanting to have that connection. And just if anyone wants to know, the camp is called Ram Planet Camp, and it's a great place to visit. But Nurul, if I can go over to you, because you've got a lot of experience doing the independent travel. In your view, how important is it for the local people to be involved in travel and tourism experiences, and how much value have you, in your experience, found it brings to your trips?
I think as a consumer myself, previously as a student, I was like what Elena mentioned, I was just ticking off like destinations on my list, and as long as it's a trip, it's considered as I visited the place. But now as I've grown older and I have like adult money, as you would say, I see myself yeah, I mean, like I can finally spend a little bit more as I travel, you know. And I see myself going towards a little bit more like slow travel and experiential travel. Like minimally my trips will be around 7 to 10 days, so that I can stay in one place for a longer period of time. And instead of choosing to stay in like 5-star resorts, sometimes if I'm in more rural areas, I would choose to stay in like villages or eco resorts or like longhouses, for example, in Sarawak. So it's really interesting from like a visitor's point of view to witness what I don't usually witness on a regular day. And this is also something that it's like not heavily marketed. I feel like it's important to sort of have like this win-win situation between the local communities and also travelers who want to experience these things. So I mean, I'm not from like the tourism board or anything, so I don't know how they will like justify where the money goes to, but I'm sure that there's at least a certain amount of economic benefits for these local people to actually thrive and hopefully just share like their authentic culture and exactly like how they would do it on regular days, instead of like putting on a show for travel to visit and like witness like a cultural tour, for example. Yeah, I think this kind of authentic experiences really will make a big difference to not just the local environment and local communities, but also the travelers who want to witness all this.
You've used the phrase there, Nurul, put on a show, actually, which kind of leads to a really important question that we haven't touched on yet, which is social media. Now, I'm sure most of you, through your research or your own personal blogs, have a good experience of halal tourism marketing on social media, and not just halal tourism travel marketing, but travel marketing in general on social media. And I want to say across the board, I think we can say over the last 10 years, particularly on Instagram, and it's changing, but it's the big accounts have been very guilty of this kind of putting on a show, enhancing destinations, making them look out of this world beautiful, many of which are, but not giving the context. Like, well, if you come here in March, you're probably going to be rainy season, so it's not going to look like that. And creating this kind of, or building on this bucket list travel thing, like I have to go to this destination so that I can show it on my Instagram and, tick that off. And that's the place I've been to. So it's changing, but slowly. And a question to everyone, I think, is how can destinations leverage social media influencers? Because it's hard to ignore the fact that social media influencers, they can be so valuable and so useful. So how can companies and destinations effectively leverage the use of social media influencers in a way that they can promote Muslim-friendly, authentic, immersive travel experiences without compromising that authenticity of the experience? And maybe there is no right way. I mean, let me know what you think. You're on mute, Elena.
As a social media influencer, I guess, although I don't consider myself a social media influencer, I feel it's such a good question, an important question, but also a double-sword question, because number one, every destination and every tourism board I have worked with and every company I have worked with, they want their destination in the best light possible. So, I will take Machu Picchu as an example, Peru, an amazing destination. And you want to go and showcase this beauty in the best light possible. You want to go to Santorini and showcase Santorini in the best light possible. And that's what tourism boards want from influencers. on the other hand, this creates this sort of, well, if you are going to showcase this as an influencer, you're going to leave a lot of points out that rainy season is in March, because that might put someone off of going in March, right? When it's off season. And I feel there needs to be a balance between how much is paid campaigns. As an influencer, I have a thing where I actually don't take a lot of paid campaigns because I feel that it puts a lot of pressure on delivering an authentic content, or I don't have the power to actually voice what I want to voice as a content creator, like off season or the crowds where you go in Bali to take the mirror picture, but actually it's not a lake, it's a mirror, and you have to queue for 2 hours in order to take exactly the same picture as everyone else. But it's such a popular Bali thing to do. It's okay to do it if that's what you want to do, but also as an influencer, it's important to, for me at least, on my ethical values or on what I want to portray on my social media, of letting people know that, hey, there is a 2-hour queue and this is actually a mirror. So it's important balance of tourism boards working with influencers, but also requesting and working with accounts that can promote on a more authentic level rather than a picture scene level of, you know, the right light and everything. Because I feel every single destination is absolutely beautiful and magical, and Allah created so much beauty around the world, and every picture can be enhanced. But I feel we are making that change back to more authenticity and showing a destination in its true lights and being more informative rather than inspirational, if that makes sense.
I think you've given the answer in like very clearly, Elena. It's about this shift away from these kind of popular experiences where you have to queue for 2 hours, and that's fine. But if whether you're going in rainy season or peak season or off peak season, and you're going to have a cookery experience, it's still going to bring that value. And I think maybe this is where tourism boards need to be shifting their demands from away from, I want my destination to look good in any light, because we're past the window screensaver era of idyllic beaches. And I'm thinking of you, Arif, here as well, because of course Zanzibar is considered one of the most stunning places in the world, where you have those dreamy beaches and incredible scenery, but also you will have times of the year where you're not going to get that level of view that perhaps people are expecting from social media. And one of the ways to manage people's expectations can be just, let's shift away to authentic experiences where you're learning more about the Islamic heritage of the island of Stone Town, where you can go and learn how to make traditional food with a local family, where you can even have a homestay. And that can happen, I think, maybe at any time of year. But Arif, what's your take on this? Based on, I guess you can see previous material that's been used, and maybe you're updating it, of course. So, what's your take on that?
All right. So as I say, like initially, is that it's all about like the indicators that like you have like for success. Um, People do want to put on a show per se because they just want the numbers flowing in. But then, let's say, for instance, with the same scenario, let's say it's rainy season. It's basically the rainy season in Zanzibar from March to May. But then there is a market that likes the rain. If you look at people from the Gulf, they don't have rain, Well, for the past few weeks, like it's a different case. But there is this market that would actually want to come and travel just to see the greenery, just to see the rain, just to feel that weather. So it's not all about it being nice rainbows and butterflies. I think that there is a market for everything that a destination does have to offer. Because if you come to Zanzibar, yes, if you go right now and then like you Google Zanzibar, you see the best beaches in the world, etc., etc. You'll never see the potholes on the road. Okay, okay, but like we have a lot of those. We are actually trying to invest heavily right now to fix the roads and the infrastructure, etc. But then you will also not see the living standards of the people, and like which is the most important thing. And this is why I do advocate heavily for halal tourism, because I believe that this is what can come and change that. This is what we can have all different markets. If people do want to come for the sun, sand, and sea, they can come for the sun, sand, and sea at the right season. If people do want to come for the rain and the greenery, there's a season for that. If people do want to come for the society, for the village experience, for the connection, for the community involvement, there is a time for that as well. There is something that I presented in the Congress a few days ago, Soumaya, if you do remember. I wanted to introduce a package that is called the Zakah package. So when it's time for people to give their Zakah, they can actually come and give their Zakah and see where that Zakah is going to and see the impact of the contributions. Because right now in many countries, they actually don't see like where it's going. There's just a fund, they collect the money, and maybe they see a few pictures and videos, but then it would be lovely to have the whole experience. And in terms of a spiritual way, this can actually enhance you because you can actually see that this is the meaning of zakah. Because right now, like we just see it as an obligation. But then I heard this from somebody the other day as well, right, in the Congress. The same thing with prayer. People see it as just, I have to pray. People don't enjoy it as they should, so it should be an escape. It should be something that you do want to do. And this is where we can come up with this all new ideas, like innovative ideas, whereby you can have the travel bit, you can have the spiritual bit, and of course, if you have those two, you will have the impact as well.
Fantastic. I mean, you've covered a lot in there, and I think the main message there is segmentation and getting to know your tourists better and getting to know your potential new markets better, so that you can get that messaging out there to them to let them know that you have what they are able to offer. Because that's a really good point about Gulf travelers wanting the rain. I guess also maybe in Malaysia, travel for snow experiences or autumn experiences is another segment that destinations can look out for. Now, I'm conscious of time. I received a nudge from Erisha that we should be getting ready to wrap up. So I just wanted to do a quick fire round at the end for everyone now to have a chance just to share really kind of going forward and based on your knowledge and your experiences, the emerging trends that you're seeing coming out that you think will be significantly influencing this future of authentic and adventurous Muslim travel. What is your advice that you would give to new entrants in the market looking to make a mark, whether they are travel providers, tour operators, bloggers, tourism boards, from all of the angles? What would be a key message that you think they should keep in mind getting into this market?
Maybe I could jump in first, and the others will have to think of something
Go
else,
for it.
right? Make my life easier. I really think that the biggest trend that is coming our way, and it does it a disservice really to call it a trend, is sustainability. I mean, we've talked about this throughout. The word has popped up here, there, and everywhere. But this is really going to be the driving trend. This is going to be transformative, and I think particularly when we're talking about younger generations, and as you said, Soumaya, so much of the Muslim population of the world right now is that younger generations. It's increasingly important, and sustainability is not or should not be an option. It should just be the default. And I really think that operators right now, if you're starting out and whether you are eco or ecotourism or not, whatever you're doing, I think that you need to be building in sustainability right now, right from the start. And that's going to be your huge competitive advantages over those incumbents, people who are trying to change their business model and trying to change the way that they're thinking of things. Because it's coming, and it's coming faster probably than a lot of the tourism industry expect.
Absolutely. You're absolutely nail on the head. Elena, would you like to go next?
Authenticity and being real. For me, it's a very big part of what I am, what I represent. And I feel that the more changes come with sustainability, with authentic experiences, brands, bloggers, they have to keep it real of what tourists expect, and also what you promote. And there needs to be a collaboration between the two, in brands and social media influencers working together.
Arif, I think you wanted to say something along the same lines.
Yes, but in fact, like, she had to go first, but then, I would say that you need to keep it real. So, there is so much than whatever the mainstream is showing us. And whatever that the mainstream is not showing us, there is a market for that as well. I also lived in the UK for a while. Since I was so used to the ecosystem being very, very like halal and like Muslim friendly, I would buy my meats from Tesco's, and I didn't know that it's not halal until 2 years down the line. Um, I would give a call to my parents just for me to hear the adhan sometimes, because I didn't hear it for 6, 7 months. And if it's something that you're used to hearing every day, it's something that is soothing. It's something that like you crave. So just keep it real. There is a market for everything that you have in the destination. You just need to package it right.
Fantastic. Nurul.
Yes. Yeah, I actually have the same thing. Yeah, I was just about to say to focus on like authenticity and community, be it for new bloggers or tourism blogs or travel providers who want to work with bloggers. I think at the end of the day, the good, the bad, and the nuances and the characteristics of your travel experience, that's what makes the whole travel experience complete. Yeah, I think every country has its own good and bad, and that's what makes it so unique.
Okay, so I mean, you've hit all of the points on the head, and I think for any tourism boards listening in, for people looking to get into halal tourism and they're not sure where to start, even if you're a small provider, maybe you have a small restaurant or you have a very small experiences provider in a destination, you can see that there are lots of different ways that you can get involved in the future of halal tourism, because authentic, immersive experiences are the future of not just halal tourism, but tourism across the board. And at the same time, when we're talking about these types of experiences, one of the biggest values that they are offering is a way to make travel and tourism more sustainable, empower local people more, empower the local economy more, protect and preserve local culture, local environment, and then hopefully going further than that. And this is something that Arif, you mentioned also previously at the Halal Tourism Congress, the idea of being regenerative, not just protecting what's already there, but also giving back. And I think the zakat idea is such a fantastic example of this. So you heard it here first. Thank you very much to my fantastic panelists, to Nurul, to Hannah, to Arif, and to Elena for making this such a valuable session. I hope you've enjoyed the session. Please do feel free to check out the websites of everybody that I mentioned at the beginning. You can also find the details on the profiles on the Crescent Rating website. And do check out the other interesting sessions that we have as well at the Halal in Travel Global Summit. I'm Soumaya Hamdi, your host. Thank you very much for joining us.